African township, Millicent Geico became a victim of what's been called corrective rape. She's a lesbian attacked for being un-African by a man wanting to turn her straight.
He locked the door and then we fought. Because he's a man, he overpowered me by strangling me. I tried to scream, but my voice was too low.
Campaign groups say at least 500 lesbian women are the victims of corrective rape each year. More than 30 are known to have been murdered. Many more attacks are thought to go unreported. Only a fraction of cases result in prosecution, still fewer in conviction. That's because of prejudice among the police themselves. Toomey blacked out as she was beaten and raped by a drunk man outside a bar.
And then the police, they didn't even give me the attention that I wanted, you know. Instead, I was like a joke to them, you know, in such a way that, okay, they were like, I don't know, maybe they thought that I want to be a guy, you know.
The most basic would want to be addressed because you find that perpetrators are never held, you know, responsible for these cases, and therefore these things keep on, you know, perpetuating because there's nothing that's been done. Therefore, well, it's not serious cases, maybe.
Millicent's alleged attacker was arrested and then released on bail of less than $10 US. Toomey's case remains open, but a year later, the man she says raped her is still at large. Since South Africa's first democratic elections in 1994, lesbians have become more open about their sexuality, embracing rights enshrined in the country's constitution. But their communities have not always embraced them back.
He said to me he's going to prove me that on that day, he's going to show me that I'm a woman, I'm not a guy, I can't date other women.
To some men, Toomey and Millicent don't have rights. Their sexuality a crime punishable by violence, by rape, even death. Jonah Hull, AlJazeera, Johannesburg.
At least 12 people are reported dead after a shootout between two rival drug gangs in the Mexican city of Acapulco. The gunfire erupted as one group attacked taxi drivers associated with another gang. 6 cars were incinerated. 2 of the victims are said to have burnt to death in their vehicles. The 2 gangs were reportedly battling for control of the local drug market. Another 4 men were thrown to their deaths off a bridge with their hands and feet tied. And authorities in Mexico have arrested one man suspected of killing at least 20 people in and around the capital since the beginning of this year. Juan Carlos Vasconcelos Montalvo, known as the grey-haired one, is also accused of smuggling drugs. Authorities say he worked for the La Familia drug gang. In Bolivia, protesters have marched for a 4th straight day against rising food and transportation costs. Public support for President Evo Morales has been falling after he tried to lift the subsidies on gasoline, sugar and flour in December. The U.S. Secretary of State has called on Pakistan to stop what she called the encouragement of anti-American sentiment. Hillary Clinton's remarks come amid anger in Lahore over the killing of 2 Pakistanis by a U.S. embassy employee. Raymond Davis says he was acting in self-defense when he shot the men last month. The United States says he has diplomatic immunity and is putting pressure on Pakistan to release him. Taiwan's former First Lady has been spared a 17-year prison sentence because of poor health. Wu Shu-chen has been paralyzed from the waist down since she was hit by a truck in 1985. Her sentence has been suspended, but she will be confined at home. The 57-year-old and her husband, the former President Chen Shui-bian, have both been convicted on charges of corruption. Chen is currently serving a 19-year prison sentence. Australia's Prime Minister Julia Gillard is trying to get parliamentary support for a new tax to pay for flood relief programs. Gillard says the money is needed, especially in the state of Queensland, to get it back on track. Andrew Thomas takes a closer look at the economic impact of this disaster.
Back in business, a month after it was 3 metres underwater, Brisbane's produce market up and running. But some fruits are in much shorter supply than they were before. Banana plantations avoided the worst of the floods, only to be devastated by Cyclone Yasi.
We've got a situation this weekend where we have the major growing area in Queensland for watermelon at Chinchilla. They're having their festival and they're having to bring watermelons up from Griffith because they don't have any watermelons.
Queensland's agricultural businesses have taken a $500 million hit, a quarter of their annual income. Consumers affected too. Bananas in Australia have doubled in price. Queenslanders have been hit in other ways too. Last December, tourist authorities brought Oprah Winfrey to the Sunshine State, hoping her millions of fans would follow. Then these pictures undid all the good work. In fact, most tourist areas were untouched by the floods, but perception matters. Bookings have collapsed.
It has reduced the business of tourism in Queensland after the floods. Before the cyclone, we estimated by as much as $500 million. That is money missing out of people's tills, out of the economy, out of the communities that are supported by tourism, and it's a grave concern to us.
But it's mining where the economic impact is most severe. Australia is the world's biggest coking coal exporter. Queensland's ports are operating again, but the majority of coal mines are still partly underwater. A $40 billion industry facing revenue drops of 20% and calling for a relaxation of environmental laws to fast-track their recovery.
If it was a case of taking the water in the mines and throwing it over the wall and getting on with production, then you'd be back into production much more quickly. But in Australia, in Queensland, you have to go to the environmental regulator, explain your situation, seek special approval to get rid of this water over and above their normal conditions.
On world markets, short-term coking coal prices have leapt by a third. That will feed into steel prices, an impact on final goods worldwide. As for Australia, the overall impact of the floods has been to wipe 1.5% of 6 months' worth of national output. A proposed flood levy tax will hit almost every Australian. Queensland's floods and storms were unprecedented in their severity and their duration, but those they affected directly were relatively few in number. Their economic consequences, though, are being felt right across Australia and right around the world. Andrew Thomas, Al Jazeera, Brisbane.
Hello, this is Al Jazeera, and these are the stories making headlines. At least 70 people are now thought to have been killed during the demonstrations across Libya. Security forces in the city of Benghazi and some other towns in the east of the country have now left the streets. People are calling for the leader, Muammar Gaddafi, to step down. And in Bahrain, security forces have attacked protesters for a second time. Dozens of people are reported wounded, some of them critically, after forces opened fire on a crowd. The ruling royal family has called for dialogue and calm.
I say calm down to the person who throws stones and to the person who shoots bullets. This doesn't serve anybody.
Do you want to withdraw the security forces from the street?
We are talking, the security forces, we are talking about controlling the situation. We cannot really do impulsive decision at this moment.